covering material in the Introduction of Integrated Chinese Level 1, Part 1, 3rd edition. In this lecture, I'm going to introduce another component of the Chinese syllable, and that is the initials, and there are 21 initials. So today we are going over the 21 initials. Okay. 21 initials, okay. So here's one way of looking at the 21 initials, and they are B, P, M, F, D, T, N, L, G, K, H, Ji, Qi, Xi, Z, C, S, Zhi, Chi, Shi, and R. Let's talk a little bit more about them. You can see that right now there are circles around these different layers, right? You see this? Here we go, and here. These are connected. These sounds, for example, the top four, are all connected by where they take place in the mouth. Labia is another word for lips, so they are produced right at the lips. Alveolars are at the alveolar ridge. We'll look at a picture of a mouth in a second, and you can see that. Gutturals are more the sound that are making their way back in your mouth. Palatals are made up along your palate. Dental sibilants are, the dental part is teeth. They're made right behind your teeth. And sibilant, it means the sound that comes out, which is an S-type sound. And then finally, you have these retroflex sounds, which are made with your tongue flexing, that's the flex part, back, retro. So when we talk about retro, we're talking about something that's going back. Like when we say retro, it means it's back in time, it's not current. And you talk about retrograde and that's spinning the opposite way from what we would think of. So that's retro. Okay. Here, just to give you a sense of what we're talking about in parts of the lips. So here are the lips. So this is the sound. Here we have this right up here. This is, this is the lips. And then you see underneath we have teeth, upper teeth, lower teeth. That's this dental part, right? Dental, when we talk about dental sibilants, you think about your teeth. Now, here's where we don't think very often. This here, right here, 5, is the alveolar ridge. So it's that hard ridge that comes right behind your teeth, okay? Then, finally, you have the palate, which is, as you see, it's 6 is the hard palate, and then 7 is the soft palate. So if you feel with your tongue and back, you can feel there's a part that's firmer, and then it gets softer towards the back. Okay, that's the palate. Okay. Here we have another way of looking at the initials, and this shows us not only the initials are organized not only by where in the mouth they take place, which is these down here, right? What part of the mouth is used to make the sound, but also by how the sound is made. So we're looking at aspirate means that you make a puff of air, okay? Aspirate is a puff of air. Unaspirate, no puff of air. So you'll see that the difference between this labial B and the labial P, if you make those two sounds, B and P, watch my mouth for a second, B, P, you can't see any difference. What you hear is that little puff of air, that my mouth makes the same shape. It's made in the same place of the mouth, but one you don't let out a puff of air, one you do. So B and P. Okay. The third, going back to the chart, the third type of sound, way sound is made is nasal, and that is through the nose. So you have a little sound. So and n make those sounds, right? And these are two initials. They're the two nasal initials. And then we have fricatives. And so fricative, the type of sound is made with friction, right? Fricative. So f, and s, and all these other sounds. And then finally, we have something we call voiced continuance. We have very few voiced sounds in Chinese, and the two that we do have are and r, and r. Okay. Now we've got this chart here, but let's go through all these different groups more slowly. Okay. So first let's look at labials and alveolars. Okay, as I mentioned before, labials are sounds that are made with your lips or up near your lips, and you do tend to round them. Your lips are round. B, b. We often use this sound with the final o. So bo. You can try that on your own. Bo. We make a puff of air. This is aspirated. Po. Sorry. And then we have mo. That is that nasal sound. Your mouth is making the same shape, but you make a different type of sound. You let it sort of ring in your nose cavity a little bit, your nasal cavity a little bit. Mo. And then finally, you let a little bit of friction go out. Fo. Okay, so one more time. You have po, mo, and fo. And again, if you swap the image and look at my mouth, you'll see that when you're just looking at it, you can't tell very much difference. It's really how the sound is made. So it's po, mo, and fo. So you see in all cases, you can see that roundedness, and it's how you make the sound makes the difference in those cases. Okay, moving on to sounds that are called alveolars. These are the sounds made, as we said, behind your teeth. That little ridge behind your teeth is where you want to make the sound, and it's d, d, d. Getting back to the chart, duh, okay. So duh is a sound that is not aspirated. None of these sounds are really made way back in your mouth. Your vocal cords don't vibrate much. That is we don't voice these sounds. But we have duh, duh. It's really made up in the front with just your tongue and your front part of your mouth working. The next sound, puff of air, t, t, t. Here is the nasal sound, n, n, n. The tongue is kind of placed on that alveolar ridge to make those sounds. And then finally, l, l, l. Here it goes back a little bit. You do have a bit more of a nasal sound, and it's a continuous sound. L, l, l. Okay. Before we go to gutturals and the others, let's go through one more time, watching my mouth. Okay, we're doing the duh, duh, t, n, and l. Okay. Here we are at, yes, gutturals and palatals. Okay. So this is somewhat of a G sound. It's back a little bit, but it's not as strong as our G sound, like in gas or something. You don't have that really g sound. It's more like the G in singing. Okay, so it's got a ng sound, but it's not as strong as our g. Okay, so as our gas sound. Okay, so g, g, and there you just don't have a puff of air. Add a puff of air, and you have k, k, k. Add a friction sound, h, h, h. Okay. Now, these are what we call palatal sounds. And so the first one is a little like our J, but it's much, because remember the palate is in front. You can find the palate behind your alveolar ridge, and your mouth is sort of flat making this sound. So it's G, G, So somewhat like our J sound, but it's your mouth, your tongue is further forward and sort of flat on the top of your mouth. G. Okay, you do that sound with the puff of air, and you have chi, chi, chi. And again, this is something like a CH sound, but it's further front. So we'll talk about in a minute, another set of sounds that also are somewhat like this J sound, the CH sound, and now we're going to get this SH sound. But they're all with your tongue flat on your mouth and further up, and they're really, your mouth is in a different place than when you make the G, chi, and C sound. So G, chi with a puff of air, and then C, that's that sibilant sound, just that smooth sound. C, one more time. G, chi, and C. Okay. Now we're getting to sounds that are a little bit harder and a little bit more foreign from anything that we've had. These are what we call dental sibilants. And you'll notice, remember I said that I sound is a little tricky. Here is where it becomes tricky. So this sound, dental, means behind your teeth. Okay? Dental is teeth. Sibilants means it's got a buzzing sound, an S or a buzzing sound, a snake sound, right? So this first one is z, z, z. That Z, I like to think of it more as maybe a DS sound or a DZ sound, like the word ads. You could spell it either ADS or ADZE. You have that type of instrument, and it's that Z, right? That's the sound that you make with this Z. So Z. Here, you make the same sound with a puff of air. S, s, s. So rather than a DZ, it's more like a TS. You start making a kind of T sound, but then you add that sibilant sound to it. S, s, s. Okay, and here is on your mouth where you're making that sound. You can see, as I said, that your tongue here we go. Your tongue is right here, touching your teeth, okay? And it's a gentle touch. So, z, no puff of air, s, puff of air. And then we have s, s, which if you can see here, your mouth is pretty much shaped the same way. It's a little bit narrower perhaps, and it's a straight stream of sibilant sound. S, s, s. Okay, so one more time. Z, s, and s. Now this S sound, which when it's with the sound, you can almost hear a Z buzz, right? We'll notice it changes quite a bit depending on what final it comes after it. So the S sound is very much conditioned by the final that it precedes. Okay? So one more time with these dental sibilant sounds, we have z, s, and s. Okay? So z, s, and s. Okay. Now, this next set of sounds are, for most Western speakers, the hardest sounds to make. They are actually, for many Chinese speakers, a very difficult sound to make. This is a very northern sound. You'll hear it in the north and in the south. Some of the southern dialects, they don't have it at all, and so when they're speaking Mandarin, they have some troubles with these sounds. And they are represented in pinyin by an H. Okay, so as soon as you see that H, what you know is that your tongue is going to bend back. You see how here's your tongue here. It's bending back towards your tonsils, right? And this sound comes out. It's like a J sound, but with your tongue back, bending back towards your tonsils. It sounds like drup, drup, drup. It's a hard sound, no puff of air. And so it's not a soft zh by any means. It's a hard zh, zh. It's kind of like the DJ in the last part of judge, right? You have that DJ sound, j, j, j. That's what it sounds like, j or j. And again, that I changes. It goes further back, and and your tongue still stays rounded when you make that I sound. So we have j, j. That's with no puff of air. You add a puff of air, and it becomes ch, ch. And again, it's like our CH sound, but your tongue is in a very different position. Your tongue is sort of bent back and trying to touch your tonsils. It won't make it there, but it's trying. So, and that I continues to stay very back. Okay, and then finally we have this, or not finally, second to last, we have this sibilant sound, quite a bit like our SH, but again, your tongue is rolled back. And as I said, this is a sound you hear a lot in Northern Chinese. It often sounds kind of like they're gargling because you hear all these sounds that are rattling around in the back of their throat. And then finally we have. And so here, as you can see in this picture, the sound is coming straight up, but it kind of vibrates a little bit right there. Okay, so and let's swap image and watch my mouth one time. And okay. Let's go over all the pronounceable initials one more time. These are, this is how we normally, when little kids are rattling off the sounds, this is how they pronounce them with these particular simple finals. So we have bo, po, mo, and fo. Next layer, de, t, n, and l. Here we're at the gutturals. G, k, h. Here we have our palatals. G, chi, and si. Dental sibilants. Z, ts, s. And here we have our retroflex sounds. Gr, sh, sh, and r. Okay. Now, at this point, you've heard all the sounds, and we have seen how the I changes a little bit depending on what it comes in front. And now you've watched 3 mini lectures. You've seen our first mini lecture, which just introduced the structure, the components of a Chinese syllable. You saw our second mini lecture on the simple finals. And now this is the third mini lecture, and this was on initials, the 21 initials. Now, this is all you're to watch today. Between today and when you attend class tomorrow, between now and when you attend class tomorrow, I'd like you to do a couple things. One is I'd like you to listen to the textbook tapes for section B. That's in your, there are the tapes that correspond to pages 2 through 6 in your textbook. When you go to the virtual language lab, you'll see that you have textbook tapes. Look for B1, B2, etc. And those are the ones I'd like you to listen to for practicing the simple finals and the initials. Another thing I want you to do is I want you to go to the Yabla chart, and I want you to look up these sounds. Bu, fa, mo, ge, ka, he, ji, qu, xu, zi, ca, se, zhe, cha, shi, and ru. Listen to those sounds one more time, And just this, here is where this chart is, just to remind you. And so when you hit any of these, you can choose what tone you want to listen to, and you will hear the sound. And so this is a great way to practice. I want you to listen to those sounds that I suggested and all the other sounds. Tomorrow I'll test you. And so I'm looking forward to seeing you in class on Thursday. And that's all for now.